The message came at 3:04 a.m., crashing through every comms channel known to Earth. Civilian networks, military satellites, even underground darknet forums, all flooded with the same transmission. It wasn't just audio or video. It hit the senses like a pulse of soundless thunder. Minds trembled, eyes watered. Some collapsed. Most stared blankly at screens, trying to process what felt more like a command than a communication. "We are the Centauri. We offer Earth protection. You are now under our care." The voice wasn't a voice. It had no accent, no tone. It didn't speak in language. It implanted certainty in your mind, like a fact you'd always known but couldn't prove, and it pissed off a lot of people. The first response wasn't from a government or a president. It was from a war vet named Grant, sitting in his rusted-out garage in rural Colorado, halfway through a bottle of whiskey and flipping through old war footage on his tablet. His face wrinkled in disgust when the message hit his screen. "Or is that a threat?" he muttered, staring into the static, glitched message. And he wasn't alone. Thousands, maybe millions, had the same reaction. Not gratitude, not fear, not awe. Just one gut-punched question. Who the hell gave these things permission? By sunrise, cities were in chaos. Not from war, not yet, but from silence. Satellites stopped responding to human commands. The International Space Station blinked out of orbit. Drones dropped from the sky. Air traffic froze. It was as if someone had quietly placed Earth in a cage and locked the door. With a smile. Politicians called it a benevolent show of strength. Scientists called it first contact diplomacy. But men like Grant, they knew a trap when they saw one. He wasn't special. Not anymore. Just another forgotten soldier who'd been tossed aside after doing his time. He'd seen real threats, knew the look of something smiling with teeth. And this stank of control disguised as mercy. The Centauri hadn't asked, they hadn't negotiated, they'd just declared. That was a move made by conquerors, not guardians. In an abandoned bunker under the Wyoming hills, a handful of people were gathering. People who didn't trust easy words and glowing promises. Former black ops, off-the-grid scientists, survivalists, hackers, not patriots, not heroes, just paranoids who had finally been proven right. One of them was a woman who used to design kill-switch AI for the Pentagon. Another was a man with a Russian accent and a prison brand on his neck. They had names, but none used them anymore. Names meant exposure. Names meant trust. All they needed now were code words and silence. And then there was Grant. He didn't come with a speech, didn't promise revenge or survival. He just dragged in a charred, fried piece of alien tech, something he'd found fused into the roof of his neighbor's barn after the Centauri made their gift to Earth. "I don't want protection," he said, tossing the hunk of metal onto the table. "I want my damn sky back." What no one realized, not yet, was that Earth hadn't been chosen at random. The Centauri didn't protect planets for free. They offered, and if you refused, you burned. That's how their empire had grown. Not through war, but through fear of war. But humans? Humans don't know how to kneel. And the Centauri had never faced a species that bit back when it was being fed. Grant didn't trust scientists, not the government kind anyway. He'd seen too many of them turn genius into genocide under the banner of progress. But the woman standing across from him now wasn't wearing a lab coat. She was barefoot, covered in soot, and had a streak of dried blood down her cheek. Whatever she'd done to get here, it hadn't been through polite channels. They called her Remy, though no one knew if that was first or last. She was hunched over the alien wreckage Grant had dragged in, running her fingers along the smooth metallic veins, laced into the burned chunk like it was speaking to her. In a way, maybe it was. "This is a command node," she said quietly. "A sub-control anchor, part of a satellite relay. They weren't just watching us. They were programming us. Conditioning. Grant leaned against the concrete wall of the bunker, arms crossed. Meaning what? Meaning your neighbor's barn had part of a mind control system stuck in the roof. She didn't even flinch when she said it, like that kind of thing was normal now. Christ, muttered someone near the back. The hacker, a guy who went by the name Needle. Skinny, pale, twitchy. The kind of guy who looked like he hadn't slept since 2012. They're rewriting neural patterns through electromagnetic resonance, low-wave brain manipulation, behavior alignment through frequency saturation. I've seen models of this before, in theory. But they're doing it live, on all of us. They're not offering us protection, Remy added. They're installing a behavioral override protocol. Slavery, Grant said flatly. Worse, she said, eyes hard. Slavery you thank them for. Across the world, the signs were there, subtle at first. People smiling too much, road rage incidents plummeting, protests dissolving before they started. Social media had turned peaceful, too peaceful. Arguments ended with, let's agree to disagree. Politicians stopped lying, but they also stopped talking. Everything just mellowed out, and no one found it strange, except those who weren't affected. The broken, the stubborn, the ones who'd lived too long outside the system. Veterans like Grant, outliers like Remy, off-grid freaks like Needle, people whose minds weren't running the same OS anymore. And now they were the threat. At 2:06 a.m., 38 miles north of New Mexico's dead zone, a drone swarm appeared over an unregistered house in the desert. No warning, no signal. Just a flicker of light in the clouds. And then silence. The next morning, there was no house, no crater, just absence. Like the place had never existed. The Centauri had noticed. The anomalies were being flagged. One of them lived in that house, a kid named Ryder who used to be a child soldier in Central Africa before escaping into the States under a fake name. He was 17, burned through 2 fake identities, and could break into satellite code with a solar calculator. Now he was gone. Grant didn't show much emotion when they heard the news. He just nodded, picked up the pulse rifle Remy had modified from an old mining tool, and started loading shells. We waited too long, he said. We gave them room. Let them soften us up. Remy was already pulling maps. Needle was hacking through frequency bands trying to find a pattern in the disappearances. But all of them knew the same thing. The war had already started. They were just late to it. 2 days later, they found the first facility. It was hidden beneath an abandoned mall outside Salt Lake City, a place people had already forgotten about. No guards, no lights, just a locked freight elevator that led 4 levels underground. And what they found there wasn't alien. It was human. Doctors in surgical scrubs, technicians with neural implants, screens showing people strapped to chairs with wires jammed into their skulls, all smiling, all whispering the same phrase over and over again. We are safe now. We are protected. Needle started dry heaving. Remy backed away, whispering, They're not just altering behavior, they're seeding loyalty. And then the alarm sounded. Grant didn't hesitate. He raised his weapon and fired into the control console, sparks flying. They weren't here to play spy. They were here to shut it down. But the Centauri weren't going to let that happen, and what came through the other side of that locked steel door wasn't human anymore. The steel door buckled before it even opened, like something behind it was pressing with inhuman weight. Grant stepped forward without flinching, pulse rifle steady against his shoulder. Remy was already dragging a control board off the wall, yanking out wires, while Needle scrambled to kill the security feeds. Then came the sound, a low hum, rising, vibrating deep in the chest like the onset of a migraine. Everyone flinched, everyone but Grant. The door cracked down the center. Something stepped through. It had once been a man, maybe. The outline still resembled human biology, but everything else was wrong. Flesh that shimmered like wet glass, eyes that didn't blink, and veins pulsing with something that glowed a faint violet. And the smile, frozen, unwavering, stretched too wide to be real. "Welcome," it said in a voice that wasn't its own. "We are glad you are not afraid." Grant fired. The pulse shot punched a hole straight through the thing's shoulder. No blood, no scream, just a stutter in the glow. Then it lunged. Grant went low, shoulder-checking it into the wall. The creature twisted unnaturally, bones bending where they shouldn't. Its hand, or what passed for one, snapped open, revealing tendrils of fiber-optic nerves reaching for Grant's face. Remy lit it up with a blast from her modified railgun, frying it mid-lunge. It hit the floor, twitching. They all stared. Needle muttered, "That wasn't alien tech. That was ours." Grant turned to him, jaw tight. "Number that was ours." Rewired. Later, when they regrouped in the upper level, Remy dissected the corpse. The inner systems were a hybrid of Earth-made cybernetics and alien enhancements, perfect fusion. That meant one thing. The Centauri weren't just brainwashing people. They were upgrading them, making them faster, stronger, more loyal, less human. "Why make foot soldiers?" Needle asked. "They've got the tech to crush us from orbit." Remy gave him a look. "Because this isn't about killing us. It's about replacing us." The room went silent. Grant was pacing by the door, pulse rifle still hot in his hands. "They're swapping us out one by one," he said, voice low. "Taking the ones no one will miss first, the unstable, the drifters. Then they'll move up. Senators, officers, generals, teachers, preachers. By the time people notice, it'll be too late." Remy wiped her hands clean of alien blood. "And the worst part? We won't even fight back. We'll thank them for the help." The facility went up in flames before dawn. Needle rigged the power core to overload, and they made it out with just minutes to spare. As the mall above collapsed into a smoking crater, Grant watched it burn from the ridge and muttered, "One down, 1,000 to go." Remy touched the device she'd pulled from the corpse, a small circular disc embedded with microscopic circuitry and something like bone. A tracking unit. A relay. A signal. She handed it to Grant. "We can trace it," she said. "Find the hub. Find where they're really running this from." Grant turned it over in his hand. "You know what happens when we find it, right?" She nodded. "We go to war." 3 days later, their names hit the list. The Centauri issued a new transmission, not a global one, a targeted one. It reached every phone, every screen, every neural link tied to Earth's global data stream. 5 faces, 5 designations, labeled as anti-unity threats. One was Grant. Another was Remy. Needle. A desert pilot named Arlo, who'd taken down one of the Centauri's signal towers in Arizona. And a woman in New York who'd led a mass blackout of implant clinics. Their faces were marked in red. No one had to say what it meant. Bounties. Open hunting. Earth was now a collaborationist planet. Most didn't even realize it. They believed the Centauri had brought peace, balance, safety. And the ones who did know? They were being hunted like dogs. That night, Grant sat alone outside the bunker, the cold wind cutting sharp across the hills. He didn't drink, didn't smoke, just stared up at the stars, his sky, his planet, now crawling with silent sentinels pretending to be gods. He didn't believe in destiny. Never had. But something about all this, about the slow, invisible war, felt personal. Like Earth had been chosen not just as a project, but as a test. Were humans ready to be ruled? Grant clenched his fists. Let's give 'em a real answer. The ambush happened just before dawn. They'd relocated the bunker. Too many eyes on it after the Salt Lake raid. Now they were hiding in an old missile silo deep in the Colorado Rockies, buried under 60 feet of reinforced steel. It had no online presence, no satellite imagery, the kind of place that shouldn't exist. But the Synthari didn't need maps. They had minds. It started with a flicker in Remy's eyes, just a twitch, like a bad memory flashing across her face. Then came the low-frequency hum. Familiar. Wrong. Grant knew that sound too well. "Down!" he shouted, slamming Remy to the floor. The explosion ripped through the far end of the silo, a blast so surgical it didn't even collapse the walls, just opened a clean hole through a reinforced steel plate like it had been punched out with a god's thumb. From the smoke came movement. Not drones, not Synthari, humans. But not human anymore. Their eyes glowed faint violet, just like the one in the mall. Bodies enhanced, skin unnaturally smooth, too perfect. A synthetic calm on their faces. No fear, no anger, just that damn smile. Blank, content, and completely dead inside. "By order of Unity Protocol," the lead one said, "surrender and be harmonized." Grant didn't answer. He emptied his pulse rifle straight into the bastard's chest. Chaos exploded inside the silo. Needle vanished into the shadows, already prepping a data wipe. Remy was firing from behind the comm console, her railgun charging slow but devastating with each shot. Arlo, the former pilot, had jury-rigged a turret on a mining cart and was screaming curses while mowing down the invaders. But they just kept coming. "Where the hell are they coming from?" Remy yelled. Grant dragged her behind the blast doors. "They're local, converted civilians, probably picked up weeks ago." "They're using our people," she said through gritted teeth. "That's why they never launched ships. They don't need to. We're the army now." Down in the lower level, Needle was already cracking into the alien relay Remy had recovered. The disk was humming now, like it recognized its friends nearby. Or its masters. Needle linked it to a cold, offline terminal, no wireless, no traceables, and began mapping the signal's ping routes. It was broadcasting. Even now. But not from Earth. He stared at the screen, blinking. No way. Coordinates flashed. A location. Not a moon, not a ship. A structure, orbiting the edge of the atmosphere, just out of reach of Earth's defense systems. A cloaked station, likely built in secret, monitoring Earth in real time. Command center. And worse, it was calling for extraction. "We've got to shut it down," Needle said, bursting back into the upper level, dodging gunfire. Grant was down to his last magazine. "What the hell is it?" "Orbital command relay. That's where they're running everything. These drones, the implants, even the public broadcasts. Kill that hub and you break the chain." Remy was already grabbing her bag, blood on her sleeve. "We'll never get a shot from Earth. We need to get up there." Grant looked at her, like she'd just asked him to jump to Mars. "We don't have ships," he growled. "We don't even have time." "We don't," Remy said, "but I know someone who does." 24 hours later, they were standing at the edge of the Mojave Desert. A hidden hangar, buried under sand and silence, opened slowly like the jaws of a sleeping beast. Inside was a relic, a half-finished spacecraft meant to ferry a mining team to an asteroid belt that no longer existed. The project had been scrapped after the Synthari arrived. No one needed mineral expeditions anymore when the aliens could transmute elements with a thought. But the ship was functional. Barely. "Arlo," Grant said, "can you fly it?" The man grinned, teeth yellow and cracked. "I can crash it into the sun if you want." Grant didn't smile back. "Don't tempt me." Inside, the air stank of dust and old fuel. The systems were analog, manual, exactly what they needed. No AI, no uplinks, no access points for the Centauri to hijack. Needle was already working on rerouting power. Remy pulled Grant aside. "If we pull this off," she said, voice low, "there's no going back. We already passed that point. I'm serious. If we hit that station, Earth might wake up, but they'll see us as terrorists, traitors. The media's already calling us extremists." Grant looked out at the hangar doors opening to the sky. "Let 'em," he said. "Better to be called a terrorist than live as a slave." As the engines roared to life, the crew strapped in. A stolen ship. No backup. No allies. Just 4 people heading into orbit to destroy a weaponized broadcast station run by godlike invaders wearing smiles. It wasn't a rescue mission anymore. It was a final shot at defiance. At staying human. The launch was rougher than anyone expected. The ship rattled like a dying tin can, groaning against gravity with every bolt threatening to shear off. No launch sequence, no countdown, just raw manual ignition fueled by stolen fuel cells and desperation. Arlo white-knuckled the controls, sweat streaking through the dust on his face. He didn't bother checking the gauges. They were mostly broken. "Keep her nose straight," Grant shouted from behind him. "We veer even 1 degree and we'll be orbital dust." "Oh sure, yell louder, that'll help the thrusters," Arlo barked, gripping the yoke like it owed him money. Remy was in the back, strapped to a pipe with a toolkit and the modified railgun across her lap. She was silent, lips pressed together. She knew what was coming once they hit the edge of space, and it wouldn't be silence. It would be contact. The Centauri were watching. Needle, strapped into the side seat, was flipping through hardwired analog systems, eyes wide. "Guys, the station's reacting. It knows we're coming." Grant leaned over his shoulder. "How?" "Because we're not jamming the signal from the relay." Needle's voice dropped. "We're boosting it." A long beat passed. Grant swore under his breath. Remy spoke calmly. "They think this is a surrender call, a damaged escape vessel returning to the nest." "That's good, right?" Arlo grunted as they broke through the last layer of Earth's upper atmosphere. "We sneak in, plant a charge, and boom, gone." Needle didn't look up from the readouts. "No," he whispered. "It's not good. It means they're expecting us." The station came into view minutes later, a dark shape eclipsing the stars, huge and silent, cloaked with reflective shielding that blended into the blackness of space. It wasn't just a satellite, it was a monument, an artificial god lurking in Earth's blind spot. It wasn't built for comfort or diplomacy, it was built for control. "It's bigger than I thought," Remy muttered. "Hundreds of pods attached. Must be housing thousands of converted." "Or worse," Grant said. They coasted in, no radio contact, engines cut to minimum thrust. If the Centauri had wanted to vaporize them, they would have already. But they didn't. That meant something. The bay doors opened without request, and the message came again, not in sound, but in the brain. "You are safe now. Come, be whole." Inside the station the lights were soft, ambient, too peaceful. The floors were sterile, polished metal. There were no guards, no sirens, just whispers humming through the walls like a million voices praying in unison. Needle clutched his head. "They're already in here, broadcasting directly into the skull. You hear it?" "I hear it." Grant growled, eyes scanning every corner. "And it's pissing me off." Remy activated her jammer, a crude device rigged from an old seismic generator. It buzzed to life, and the whispers dulled, like cotton stuffing shoved into your ears. Not perfect, but enough. They moved fast. Remy tracked the station's neural relay network through the floor panels. Needle followed the power routes. Every hallway they passed had rooms with glass windows, and inside were people. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Floating. sleeping, smiling, all wired up with pulses of light running into their temples. Dreams, maybe, or code, or both. "They're uploading something," Remy said, eyes narrowed. "Personalities?" Arlo asked. "More like obedience," she muttered. Then came the Centauri. They didn't burst through walls, they didn't carry weapons, they just appeared, tall, graceful beings of polished obsidian skin and eyes like glowing embers. They weren't armored, they didn't need to be. They were the architects. "Do not resist," one said, not aloud but inside their skulls. "We have removed suffering. We have corrected the chaos of your kind." "You hijacked free will," Grant snapped. "We improved it." Grant raised his rifle. "You didn't ask." The Centauri tilted its head, not out of fear, but pity. "You are broken. You kill each other for flags, for skin, for faith. We brought order." "You brought a leash," Remy said. "No," the alien answered, stepping forward. "We brought peace, and peace does not require your permission." That was it. Grant fired. The blast wasn't fast enough. The Centauri moved like smoke, too fluid to follow. But they weren't invincible. The shot grazed its shoulder, tearing through the outer plating of whatever passed for flesh. It didn't bleed, but it winced. That was enough. The fight exploded in seconds. No finesse, just fury. Arlo and Remy fired point blank. Needle lobbed a shock grenade, shorting out the lights. Grant rushed the nearest Centauri and drove the butt of his rifle into its face. It cracked like glass. They could bleed. They could die. But more were coming. Remy screamed, "We need to reach the core now!" Needle was already scanning the map, finger shaking. "Bottom level, center tower. It's broadcasting through psionic amplification spires. If we collapse the ring—" Grant didn't let him finish. "Lead the way." This wasn't a raid anymore. It was a race. To kill the voice. To shut down the false peace. To remind the galaxy that humanity may be flawed, violent, fractured, chaotic, but it would never kneel without a fight. The deeper they pushed into the station, the less it felt like a machine and more like a cathedral. The walls weren't made of metal anymore. Not exactly. They shimmered with pulsing organic light, veins of soft violet energy running through them like the walls were breathing. The floor hummed beneath their boots, a rhythmic thump mimicking a heartbeat. Or maybe a signal. Needle's voice was thin, almost cracking. "It's adapting. The ship's alive. Biosynthetic. It's rewriting itself while we're inside." "Good," Grant muttered, checking the last mag in his rifle. "Let it bleed when we kill it." They moved fast, weapons hot, no more hiding. Behind them, the Centauri had stopped speaking. No more invitations, no more manipulation. Just hunters in the dark, closing in, faster every second. They reached the central shaft. It was massive, a chamber taller than a skyscraper, its inner walls layered in rotating rings of machinery, glowing softly, each one humming with invisible power. And at the center of it all floated the core, a massive sphere of black crystal, suspended by nothing, pulsing like a god's heart. Remy gasped. "That's it. That's the amplifier. They're flooding Earth with psionic commands through that." Needle dropped to the floor with his gear, fingers flying. "If I can inject a feedback loop into the signal lattice, I can force a recursive overload." "English," Arlo grunted. "He's gonna blow the damn thing." Grant said, eyes locked on the upper balconies. "Just buy him time." Remy nodded. "Then let's give these freaks something to remember." They came in waves. The first Centauri dropped from the ceiling like liquid shadows, moving too fast to track. Grant spun, fired, caught one mid-air. It shattered across the platform like porcelain. Remy's railgun lit the room, each blast a small explosion. Arlo grabbed an exposed cable and swung across the gap to flank them, roaring like a madman. But they just kept coming. And worse, the people came too. Converted humans, smiling, empty, walking calmly into the room like sheep, arms out, welcoming, eyes glowing. No rage, no fear, just compliance. "Don't shoot them," Remy warned through gritted teeth. "They're still in there." One got too close. It touched Grant's shoulder. A wave of warmth hit him. Memories, maybe. His childhood. His mother's voice. The desert sky. A feeling of peace so deep it nearly dropped him to his knees. It wasn't an attack. It was a drug. He shoved the figure away, heart hammering. "They're using memories, emotion-based suppression fields." "Doesn't matter," Needle barked. "Core's resisting the loop. I need more time." "You don't have it," Grant shouted. Remy took the railgun, aimed at the upper ring. "I can clear them, but I'll need to get closer. Too exposed." Grant warned. "I know," she said, already moving. He reached to stop her. Too late. She was already climbing the structure, using the curved beams as steps, rifle slung, a satchel of grenades strapped to her back. Down below, Arlo took a pulse blast to the gut. He dropped hard, coughing, eyes wide in shock. Grant ran to him, dragging him behind cover. "I can't feel my legs," Arlo wheezed. "Shut up," Grant said, pressing cloth into the wound. "You're fine." "I flew you up here, didn't I?" Arlo chuckled, blood on his teeth. "Don't waste it." Another blast hit near them, sending sparks across the platform. Needle screamed from across the room. "I'm in. Loop's running. If it holds for 60 seconds, the amplifier fries." Grant stood, rifle raised. "Then we hold it for 60. Remy reached the upper balcony, planted the grenades. The Centauri turned too late. She detonated the entire ring. The ceiling ruptured in fire and bone-shaking thunder. The Centauri above were vaporized. The power feeds to the core flickered. Needle grinned. "Yes, it's cracking." The central sphere began to tremble. Light poured from the seams, flickering madly. The hum turned into a scream, a mental shriek that pierced into the skull like burning wires. Everyone dropped to a knee, even the converted. The field was failing. The signal was breaking. Then Remy screamed. A shard of shrapnel had ripped through her shoulder, pinning her to the railing. Blood gushed down her arm. A Centauri approached her, unburned, silent. It didn't speak. It just raised one long obsidian arm toward her head. Grant didn't think. He sprinted up the beam, no cover, no plan, and tackled the bastard off the balcony. They crashed into the floor below, Grant's back taking the impact. The creature shrieked in his mind, clawed at his face, but he head-butted it so hard the glow in its eyes shattered like glass. He stood, teeth bloody. Remy was still up there, half-conscious, bleeding out. Needle was screaming, 30 seconds! The amplifier was shaking now, visibly cracking. Light pouring out of it like a star dying. The entire station trembled. Centauri were retreating. The humans were collapsing, holding their heads, the connection breaking. They were winning. And yet, something deep in Grant's gut twisted. This was too easy, too clean, too... It hit all at once. The light from the amplifier didn't just crack, it burst. A sphere of white-blue energy erupted outward, silent at first, then roaring through the station like a pressure wave made of raw thought. Everyone hit the floor. Grant's brain felt like it was melting through his teeth. Needle screamed and clutched his temples. The converted humans froze mid-step and dropped like puppets with cut strings. And then everything stopped. No hum, no whispers, just silence. The amplifier core was gone, shattered into 1,000 pieces, each one still flickering with dying light. The pulsing walls dulled to grey. The veins stopped moving. The artificial heartbeat faded into nothing. For the first time since they'd entered the station, it felt dead. Remy lay slumped over the balcony railing, breathing shallow. Grant pulled himself up, vision blurring, ears ringing, and stumbled toward her. "You with me?" he asked, voice hoarse. She gave him the faintest smirk. Told you I'd crack it. Yeah, well, he said, propping her up. You also said you weren't going to get stabbed again, so your record sucks. She laughed, just once, before coughing up blood. Needle limped over, both nostrils bleeding, face pale as ash. It's down. Earth's dark. No more broadcast. No more control. You sure? Grant asked. Needle looked around at the silent, dim corridors. They cut off everything. Even their fallback frequencies are dead. It's over. But Grant didn't move, didn't smile. Something was wrong. Too quiet. Too easy. The Centauri wouldn't allow the heart of their system to go unguarded, not if it was this critical, which meant something was still missing. Check your sensors, Grant muttered to Needle. Scan the core fragments, all of them. Needle hesitated. You think there's a trap? I think we just kicked a snake nest. 10 minutes later, Needle found it. A tiny sliver of crystal embedded in one of the amplifier shards, almost invisible to the naked eye. It pulsed once when he touched it like a heartbeat. His jaw tightened. Guys, he whispered. This wasn't the core. Grant's head snapped around. What? Needle stared at the readings. The amplifier wasn't the source. It was a conduit. The signal didn't start here. It was being fed from somewhere else. Grant's stomach dropped. Where? Needle didn't answer. He couldn't, because the lights came back on. Bright, blinding, white. Then came the voice. But it wasn't inside their heads this time. It echoed through the walls, the floor, the air. You have done well. Grant raised his rifle. Nope, we're done with the monologues. You proved resistant, violent, unyielding. As expected, Remy, dazed, whispered, It's not reacting. It's responding. Humanity is as predicted, incompatible with submission, but adaptive, persistent, painfully self-aware, and capable of escalation. Needle backed away from the console. It wasn't controlling us. It was testing us. Grant's mind raced. You mean all of this was an observation? The integration protocol failed, as calculated. The fallback model will proceed. What fallback model? Grant barked into the empty room. Silence. Then, from deep below the station, a low groan echoed. Metal twisting. Bulkheads shifting. The whole structure moved. Needle ran to a panel, trying to override whatever was activating. No. They buried something beneath the station. A failsafe. Grant's hands tightened around his rifle. Define failsafe. Remy looked up, her eyes dark. A weapon. The floor split open. The chamber cracked like a shell, revealing a hidden shaft descending into blackness. From below rose something massive, not glowing, not graceful, brutal, ugly. Unlike the elegant Centauri technology, this thing looked hand-forged in a nightmare, a machine fused with bone, claws, and rows of still human faces locked in silent screams. The station hadn't been a broadcast tower. It had been a factory. The core wasn't a command center. It was a birthing chamber. The voice returned, deeper now. We created peace. You chose war, so we offer the version you understand. Remy tried to stand. It's a Titan, a psychomechanical weapon, made from every human they converted. Needle was hyperventilating. The harmonized? They didn't kill them. They uploaded them into this thing. Grant stared at the abomination rising before him. Not a ship, not a soldier, a reaper, and it was waking up. What's it even for? Arlo asked weakly from where he still lay bleeding. Grant didn't look away. To show us what happens when you say no. He raised his rifle. One fight left. The Reaper was still rising. Metal shrieked as it peeled away from the floor, cables ripping free like veins torn from a corpse. The thing was a grotesque hybrid, forged from alien alloys and human flesh, its joints groaning under its own weight. Its core glowed faintly, a dull violet heart surrounded by twisted faces, human faces, fused into the armor like a mosaic of agony. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a statement. The Centauri weren't trying to win a war. They were trying to make an example. Grant stared at the abomination as it unfolded into full height, massive arms ending in jagged claws, its spine laced with exposed nerve fibers. Each time it moved, it whispered in 100 different human voices. We are peace. We are obedience. We are the future. Remy coughed blood, but steadied herself, gripping the railgun with both trembling hands. We can't let it reach Earth. Needle was already jamming signals into the console. It's not just rising, it's arming up, charging for atmospheric descent, a kinetic drop. If that thing falls onto a city... It won't, Grant said, stepping forward. Remy looked at him. You know we're not getting out of this, right? He didn't respond. He didn't have to. Arlo, half-conscious, bleeding, managed a weak grin from the floor. If you're gonna die, might as well punch a god on the way out. Damn right, Grant said. The Reaper roared. A wave of psionic pressure blasted through the chamber, knocking consoles over, cracking support beams. Needle shielded his face as sparks rained down. I can overload the main conduit, he shouted, but someone's got to stay and trigger it manually. Grant didn't hesitate. I'll do it. Remy shook her head. Don't be a martyr. We both know I've got one arm and half a lung left. Exactly, he snapped. You can't aim for shit like this. She smirked through the pain. Grant turned to Needle. What do I hit? Needle pointed to the access platform just below the Reaper's core. There. If you overload the venting lines, the thermal surge will melt its control matrix, but you'll have to get real close. Always is. Grant muttered, locking eyes on the beast. He moved like a man who had nothing left to lose. Climbing the scaffolding, dodging falling debris, sprinting between pulses of psychic force that warped the air. The Reaper saw him, tracked him. Its claw came down like a guillotine. He rolled under it, felt the wind of it tear skin off his back. One level up. He climbed again. Each rung was a war. Behind him, Remy kept firing, precise, controlled shots, each one digging into the Reaper's outer limbs. She wasn't trying to kill it, just distract it, make it bleed in the right places. Needle rerouted every last drop of energy into the overload chamber, cables sparking, systems dying around them. It was working, but not fast enough. The Reaper roared again, and this time it spoke with clarity. You were offered peace. You chose extinction. Grant reached the platform, panting, bleeding. The heat from the venting tubes already searing the air. He slammed the override panel open and jammed the core overload rods in place. Yeah, he muttered. I get that a lot. He hit the trigger. Below, Needle screamed. It's charging! You got seconds! The Reaper howled, the voices inside it shrieking as one. The faces on its body contorted in pain. The chamber shook. Cracks raced across the walls. The beast lunged for Grant. He stood his ground, and just before it reached him, he looked it dead in the eye and growled, You can keep your peace. We'll keep our freedom. The overload ignited. The explosion wasn't fire. It was light. A star born inside a metal womb. White-hot plasma bursting through the Reaper's core, slicing through its spine, boiling its limbs into vapor. The psionic field shattered, releasing a shockwave of raw energy that blew out every remaining system in the station. The last thing Grant saw was the core fracturing, the faces inside the machine blinking free, lips parting as if waking from a long nightmare. Then, darkness. When Remy opened her eyes, she was on the floor of the hangar bay. The station was disintegrating around her. Needle was unconscious beside her. Alarms were long dead. Everything was silent, except the Earth, visible through the viewport, blue, alive, whole. No signals, no drones, just Earth. They never found Grant's body, just the scorch marks where he made his stand. Weeks later, when the team crash-landed back onto a mountain range in northern Canada, the world was already waking up. People were confused, scared. Some remembered nothing, others remembered everything. But the Centauri were gone. No ships, no voices, no whispers, just freedom. Bought and paid for. Months later, a broadcast crackled to life on the old resistance frequency. A voice, tired, ragged, unmistakable. "This is Earth, and we don't do leashes.